kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah! 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 Kurt Angle! Yeah! Why, Triple H? You son of a why? Tell me why! And Tony Khan! This is also on you!
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over it!
What is up? What is up? What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, right here on episode 7 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. We got a lot of things to talk about, man. We had Money in the Bank. We had Worlds Collide. Dude, a lot of stuff happened, especially at Money in the Bank. I think it's clear as day. WWE clearly realized that they messed up, that they screwed up by letting go of R-Truth, and they listened to the audience with those "We Want Truth" chants. You saw it on Raw, you saw it on NXT, and you saw it on SmackDown. Heck, you even saw it on TNA television. Everybody in the crowd was chanting, "We want truth, we want truth, we want truth." It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But nonetheless, the big story that we're going to be talking about primarily on this show is, of course, the return. Yes, the return of R-Truth. 1 week after getting fired. He made his return 1 week after getting fired from World Wrestling Entertainment. We're going to be talking about it right here on episode 7 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, we're also going to be talking about Mariah May. Mariah May. She did not wait at all. As soon as she got let go from AEW, or I should say, as soon as she let her contract run out, she went straight into the arms of Shawn Michaels. And of course, made her debut this past Tuesday on NXT. So we're going to be talking about the details of R-Truth's return, as well as Mariah May. We're also going to be running down, of course, All In. We had another match to announce for All In, and it's a big one, as we got Kenny Omega taking on Kazuchika Okada. One of the most classic rivalries from New Japan Pro Wrestling. We're going to be seeing it in American soil in July at All In. It's going to be a big one, man. It's going to be a big one. But yeah, we got a lot of things, man. We got a lot of things to talk about on this edition of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Before we get into all this craziness, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And before we get into all the rest of the craziness, please, of course, if you guys are watching the WrestleHavoc podcast, the podcast is not only on the WrestleHavoc channel, but it's also on the WNN Facebook page and YouTube channel, the World News Network. So if you guys are watching this show on the WNN Facebook page, I thank you guys so much for watching this edition of the show. Let's get straight into the action. Now, normally, the first thing that I would discuss is just recapping the entire Money in the Bank PLE. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We are actually going to get straight into the action. We are going to be talking about R-Truth. Because if you guys don't know, you should know, R-Truth has made his return to World Wrestling Entertainment 1 week after getting told by WWE/TKO that his contract wasn't going to get renewed. Of course, if you guys don't know, back on June 1st, 2025, Ron Killings, which is R-Truth's real name, he took to Twitter and he tweeted this, and I quote, "I'm sorry to inform you all, I just got released from WWE. I want to thank everyone, that being WWE, for the ride. But mostly, in all capital letters, I want to thank each and every one of you who was along for the ride. Thank you for all the love, support, and appreciation you have given me over the years. Thank you," and a praying emoji. Now, he tweeted that on June 1st. I believe it was last Sunday. And it literally sent shockwaves throughout the entire wrestling industry. And I say that because of the fact that R-Truth was one of the most beloved figures in the entire WWE locker room. R-Truth was basically the guy that held the entire locker room together. He held the entire locker room together. And the reactions by a lot of the superstars showed it on Twitter. Rhea Ripley replied, and I quote, "In all seriousness, this is literally so heartbreaking. Thank you, Truth." Heart emoji. Lexi, that being Alexa Bliss, she tweeted out in response to R-Truth, "Thank you, heart emojis." Bailey, "Lucky to have you." A lot of emotion by a lot of people in the locker room because clearly R-Truth was one of the most beloved figures on the WWE roster. But it came to a shock by a lot of people considering the fact that he just wrestled John Cena the last Saturday before at Saturday Night's Main Event. Could that have been a situation of WWE basically saying, "Hey, this is essentially going to be your last match," without telling him that this was going to be his last match? But realistically, it wasn't his last match because I believe 2 days prior getting let go, he did wrestle JC Mateo on SmackDown, but everybody's going to be remembering the John Cena match. You guys want to know how many people viewed that initial tweet by R-Truth on Twitter last Sunday? 22.5 million views. 22.5 million views that tweet has gotten. Yeah. People were loud, and they were loud. Of course, last night, we all talked about, well, actually throughout the whole week, everybody was talking about, oh, where is R-Truth going to be going? Where's Ron the Truth Killings going to be headed? Keep in mind, R-Truth is 53 years old. Now, he doesn't look like he's 53. The guy doesn't age at all. But he's 53 years old. But you could definitely explore your options. There's the independents. And trust me, I said this last week on the show. He could have easily been successful in the independent scene. He could have marketed himself a certain way and make bank. AEW could have been an option. But at the same time, he could easily be lost in the shuffle. TNA could have been an option. It could be somewhat of a homecoming for Ron the Truth Killings. Everybody was discussing, where is R-Truth going to be headed next? Or where is Ron the Truth Killings going to be headed next? Well, we got our answer. And our answer was nowhere. Because last night, of course, we had the tag team match between John Cena and Logan Paul to take on Cody Rhodes and main event Jey Uso, which, of course, he is the current World Heavyweight Champion. A lot of people are not digging Jey Uso as the World Heavyweight Champion. I don't know why. But he's also scheduled to face Gunther this coming Monday on Raw. But that's besides the point. That's another story for another time. Of course, we had the shocking moment of a masked individual attacking John Cena. When John Cena had the belt in his hands, he was about to hit somebody with I believe it was Cody, or I believe he already did hit Cody. Correct me if I'm wrong. The moment was so shocking to me, I completely forgot what happened in the match, even though the match was really good. R-Truth showed up out of nowhere. He unmasked himself, and the pop at the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles was deafening. And I don't say that because everybody else is saying it. I'm saying that because it's pure facts. The reaction that the people gave R-Truth last night was amazing. One of the loudest pops I've ever seen in my life. I'm being that serious. The people spoke loud, and they spoke loud and clear. R-Truth has made his return to World Wrestling Entertainment 1 week after he got let go from the company. Now, you have a lot of people on the internet saying that this was all a work. Do not listen to those people. Do not listen to those people. If you guys don't know, if you non-wrestling fans are watching this show, what is a work? What is a work? It means that something was already planned in advance. Something was already planned. WWE planned to, quote unquote, let go R-Truth in storyline and wanted to swerve the audience. They wanted to make the audience believe that it was real. That is what a work is. But I'm going to tell you guys right here and right now, that was not a work. Everything that you saw last night was WWE telling the audience that they screwed up. They screwed up. And I will talk more about the whole work thing because it drove me nuts last night. Now, initially, when this happened, I went crazy. And I thought it was only going to be a one-off and he was still gone from the company. But from what it looks like, he has signed a new deal with World Wrestling Entertainment based off of the reaction that he got by a lot of people after announcing that he was going to be let go from the company. Think about that. I said this last week. One of the main reasons, in my opinion, that I believe R-Truth got cut from WWE or WWE wasn't going to be renewing his contract was simply because of the fact that TKO thought, man, you're making way too much money and you're not really doing anything. You are just a comedy act. TKO, all they care about is the green. All they care about is the money. And there's nothing wrong with that. Any business, every business, their number one priority should be the bottom line. Because without the bottom line, you don't survive. That's just how the world works. We live in a capitalistic society. But at the same time, if you make capital at the expense of your audience and at the expense of your talent, that is where I draw the line. And that is what TKO is doing. Why do you think they moved WrestleMania 42 from New Orleans back to Las Vegas? Which, by the way, it is official. WrestleMania 42 will be in Las Vegas. They made the announcement last night at Money in the Bank. They made the announcement last night that WrestleMania 42 was going to be in Las Vegas. It was going to return to Las Vegas, which I'm not excited about, by the way, because I thought Las Vegas had a terrible crowd, especially for the first night. But why did they move to Las Vegas? They moved to Las Vegas because Las Vegas paid them more money. People need to understand. WWE, their major PLEs, their major premium live events, their major pay-per-views, major cities bid on these shows. They bid on shows like SummerSlam. They bid on shows like the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. If you guys don't know, the Royal Rumble is going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia next year. People bid on these shows. And last minute, Las Vegas made a last minute bid and they topped New Orleans. I will be the first one to tell you that WWE and TKO screwed over New Orleans. I feel so bad for the people that were making plans to go to New Orleans next year. Now, granted, the tickets for WrestleMania were going to be expensive regardless, but still, compared to the prices of this year's WrestleMania, considering it was in Vegas, Vegas itself is already expensive. Everybody was looking forward to New Orleans, and WWE last minute dropped a nuke and said that WrestleMania is returning to Las Vegas. It's a shame. TKO, they are greedy, and R-Truth is no different. They make these cuts simply to cut budget. And that is exactly what happened to R-Truth. They looked at R-Truth and looked him as expendable. They looked at R-Truth as somebody who was expendable. They looked him dead in the eye and be like, yeah, we're not going to renew your contract because, let's be real, you are only a comedy act and you are making way too much money. Way too much money for our standards. Because remember, there's new ownership in WWE now. It's not Vince McMahon or it's not the old guard. It's the UFC guard. It's Endeavor. It's TKO. And they do business a little bit differently. Whenever they see something that they can make money off of, they will do it. They will literally sponsor anything or anything. They now sponsor weapons. They sponsor tables. They sponsor ladders. There's even reports of them possibly sponsoring the ring attire for the wrestlers. They will capitalize on anything. And when it comes to cutting talent, they're a part of doing that too. And R-Truth was the victim of that. And the reaction that R-Truth got was insane. Everybody, wrestlers, fellow fans, expressed their frustration. They expressed their frustration of R-Truth getting cut. And it was really out of nowhere too. If you really think about it, it was really out of nowhere. Really out of nowhere. But R-Truth made his return last night, and the reaction that he got was deafening. Now, we got a lot of details, according to Fightful Select, regarding R-Truth's return to WWE. According to Fightful Select, R-Truth is back with the WWE before he ever technically left. And no, it's not a work. And I'll get into that discussion later on in the show. R-Truth appeared at the end of Money in the Bank attacking John Cena. A week prior, he announced his quote-unquote release from the company, which WWE clarified to Fightful at the time was actually a contract expiration that was occurring. His contract had not actually expired, but sources close to Ron the Truth Killings did claim that he has a new deal. His son has seemingly also confirmed as much on social media as well, which I will get into later on this show. Over this week that followed, wrestling companies, promoters, reps reached out to Ron Killings / R-Truth and were hopeful that they could book him for upcoming shows. A number of talent told Fightful that they spoke with R-Truth and specified repeatedly that the situation was not a work. Fightful has been told that there were, quote-unquote, many tears over Ron the Truth Killings' departure, and he was flooded with phone calls and messages that Killings seemed, quote-unquote, shocked and kind of disgusted as well as we all were. Specifically, one talent noted that Truth was cut, quote-unquote, in a very cold and impersonal way, with the talent relations employee informing him instead of, quote-unquote, top brass in the company. Fightful has been told that Killings actually ignored. Think about this. This actually caught me off guard when I read this report. Fightful has been told that Ron the Truth Killings actually ignored many of WWE's approaches during the week until Nick Khan, who of course is the president of WWE, took over and called Killings to work out on a new deal. Fightful has been told that a deal was a quote-unquote meeting halfway situation. One talent that Killings worked for over a decade stated to Fightful, Ronnie wouldn't do that. If he had to maintain a work like that, he'd just ask not to say anything. He would never lie to us about that. I think Paul Levesque also knows that lying to or working the locker room is a horrible taste, and we see that instance many times, not only in the WWE, but also in AEW as well. In response to Triple H claiming R-Truth's departure and appearances was part of a show, a number of talent reached out to outright claim the opposite. Truth's son, Christopher Killings, also pointed out a cap in response to the claims of it being part of the show. So if you guys don't know, Triple H, if you guys see right here in this photo, Triple H himself, Triple H, of course, he always attends those press conferences, and he basically flat out said that in response to the R-Truth return, this guy basically lied in front of the media. He said, it's all part of the show. I'm here to tell you right here and right now, everybody watching this live stream, whether that is on the WrestleHavoc channel or on WNN, Triple H lied to the media. And I'm a fan of Triple H, but I'll call BS when I see it. He lied to the media. He lied to the media in front of everybody, and everybody saw through the BS. Everybody saw through the BS. He lied in front of the media and said that it was all part of a show. No, it was not part of the show. And if you think it was a part of the show, you are the problem. And if it was a part of the show, it made no sense whatsoever. It was if you think that this was think about this. If this was a work, this was a terrible work. Because why would you, in kayfabe or in storyline, not renew R-Truth's contract? Why? So you want to make him a bigger star? Dude, you could have easily made him a bigger star without doing a quote-unquote work like that. This was not a storyline. This was not a part of the plan. If anybody tells you that this was a work, they are lying to you. This was not a work. This was damage control. That's what it was. This was damage control, period. It got to the point where Triple H lied in front of the media, and R-Truth's son, his own son, went on social media and went on it. I believe it was on an Instagram story and stated, "Stop the cap." For all you older people watching, what does "stop the cap" mean? Well, what does cap mean? Cap means you lying. Us in our generation, we always say that. Stop capping. Triple H capped. That's what happened. He capped. It got so bad to the point where R-Truth's own son went on social media and said that Triple H was capping. He was lying. This was damage control on WWE's end. Another veteran, continuing on with the Fightful report, another veteran responded to the situation saying, quote unquote, I can tell Hunter doesn't like it. He doesn't like the fans hijacking creative. Well, we did. Before elaborating their disbelief of it being an elaborate plan in a very colorful manner. Throughout the week, one of Killings' friends in the company said, quote unquote, it's hard to feel good when we fire Santa Claus. Obviously, the mood was much different with everybody excited that R-Truth made a return. PW Insider reports that the deal came together in the last 72 hours. Midway through the show, Fightful Select reported that there was a surprise planned at the end of the show, but at the time, Fightful didn't know what it was. Now, that is actually true, and keep in mind, I actually thought that The Rock was actually going to show up on this show simply because of the fact that The Rock's mom, I believe, was in the front row. And normally when The Rock's mom is there in attendance, The Rock usually shows up. It's like a running track record, but The Rock did not show up. Very weird. But WWE was kept, majority of the WWE staff was kept completely in the dark until before the match with a few people in the talent in the know. The return was kept very close to the vest for obvious reasons. Of course it was kept. Why would you want to expose the secret? In another report by Fightful, we got more details on R-Truth's WWE return. If there's any doubt remaining, Fightful has more evidence of the R-Truth situation not being an elaborate mastermind work. More proof by Fightful. Fightful spoke with higher-ups in WWE today, who confirmed our order of events as reported, including Nick Khan taking over negotiations. In fact, that Fightful was told when R-Truth had initially been approached for a return that he didn't seem to entertain the calls. When Nick Khan took over, things opened up. It was also reiterated to Fightful that Truth's initial departure wasn't a work. So this is very interesting. So basically the story goes is that R-Truth kept on denying calls from WWE until the president of the company, Nick Khan, had like a one-on-one conversation with him. Now, what does that tell me? It honestly tells me that Triple H had a lot to do with the cuts. Now, granted, I said this last week, Triple H, his role is running the creative end of WWE. He does not own WWE. TKO runs WWE. TKO owns WWE, and Triple H only does the creative portions of WWE. Now, he does have a say, of course, obviously, in all of the signings that WWE makes, as well as, possibly the cuts. And I was very skeptical of that. Now, with the whole Nick Khan story coming in and Nick Khan basically wanting to talk to R-Truth and R-Truth being accepted with Nick Khan, talking to him over a new contract, it honestly it makes me start to believe that Triple H does have a say in these releases. And from what it looks like, he does. And clearly the look on Triple H's face, Triple H was not happy about the whole situation. He was not happy. You could tell by the look on his face. The higher-ups said that Truth being brought back was something that they viewed as a good sign that the roster and the fan response being listened to overcame everything else. As one would expect, the roster is ecstatic about Truth being back with the WWE. When Ron Killings and WWE brass had been asked directly by talent about the situation, they also stated that it wasn't a work. People close to R-Truth, even his own family members, has spoken to numerous people indicating that the deal was put together very late in the week. I assume Friday. We spoke, or that being Fightful. Fightful spoke to another source in WWE management about the Ron Killings name being used. Now, if you guys don't know, R-Truth has new merch. But what's interesting about this whole situation is that from what it looks like, R-Truth is going to be no more. And we're going to see Ron the Truth Killings, which was his name in TNA. Ron the Truth Killings. Ron Killings is his real name. Could this be a sign of us seeing a newer, or not a new version, but a different side of R-Truth? Because we all know, if you guys, a lot of newer fans only recognize R-Truth for all of his comedy. And that is great. I love R-Truth. I was first introduced to R-Truth back in 2011 when he first turned heel. But when R-Truth can get serious, he can get serious. People need to understand that when R-Truth gets serious, he can get serious. You don't believe me? Watch his early TNA work. His early TNA work was some of the best in his career. It gets overshadowed a little bit. But I urge you guys, if you guys are watching this show right now, watch Ron the Truth Killings work in TNA, especially in the early years. Of course, he won the NWA World Championship, but he when he brings that anger up, he brings it. The guy can get serious. So from what it looks like, we're going to be seeing that version of Arch or Ron the Truth Killings on WWE programming, and I'm here for it because, again, this is a sign of WWE essentially turning, a bad situation into a good situation. And it's great. They weren't given any guarantees about booking, but it also stated to us that Killings had indicated in the past that he wanted to have at least more of a serious run-in ring before ending his career. Again, R-Truth is 53 years old. Regarding the shirt that WWE had ready to merchandise, or they had ready to merchandise, they had for months, and Killings were on Friday on TV in February. They were immediately companies interested in booking Ron the Truth Killings, including TNA and GCW. Fightful hasn't been given an indication about how long this new deal will be. Interesting. This whole thing was not a work. It was not a work. Not a work, not a work, not a work. You don't believe me? R-Truth even responded on Twitter, no work, to the Fade Twitter account. And of course, the rest is history. We could all debate whether this was a work or not, but in reality, this was not a work. This was not a work whatsoever. What this was damage control from WWE simply because of the fact that they screwed up, and they know that they screwed up. And the good thing about it is that they actually acknowledged that they screwed up, even though they won't. Realistically, they didn't acknowledge it. Triple H did not acknowledge it, but reality, if you watched the execution of the return at Money in the Bank, it showed that they admitted that they screwed up. And they did. They did screw up. But yeah, those are my thoughts on R-Truth's return, man. The most important thing that we can get out of this whole thing is that R-Truth is back on WWE programming. The fact that he was told by TKO that he wasn't getting his contract renewed, which led to everybody just like being upset, and the outrage on the internet was crazy. The outrage on the internet was just insane, and it got to the point where people started to rally behind R-Truth, which is fantastic. They started to rally behind R-Truth, and it was absolutely fantastic, and that led, of course, to WWE bringing this guy back. Those are my thoughts on R-Truth. Moving on, let's discuss real quick Worlds Collide. Now, I'm going to say this right here and right now. Unfortunately, due to circumstances, because I was super busy, I actually missed the Worlds Collide show. But I heard a lot of great things about the show. I saw the presentation. I saw some clips. I'm actually planning on watching the show, hopefully when I get back home. But I heard that Worlds Collide was a fantastic show. And I heard that main event between El Hijo del Vikingo and Chad Gable for the mega title was insane. But here, real quick, let me actually do a quick recap for WWE Worlds Collide. Of course, Worlds Collide was the joint show with WWE and AAA, the first joint show between WWE and AAA after WWE announced back at WrestleMania that they acquired the assets of AAA, and of course, the deal is set to be finalized by the end of the third quarter of 2025. But let's do a quick rundown of the card. Octagon Jr., Aerostar, and Mr. Iguana defeated Dragon Lee, Cruz del Toro, and Lince Dorado. Stephanie Vaquer and Lola Vice defeated Chick Tormenta and Delays. I believe that's how you pronounce it. By the way, Octagon Jr. had a stint with Dominic Mysterio, I believe, and that actually led to WWE announcing an extra match for Money in the Bank that same night between Dominic Mysterio and Octagon Jr. for the Intercontinental title. But we will talk about that later on. Legado del Fantasma, Santos Escobar, Angel, and Humberto defeated El Hijo del Wagner Jr., Pagano, and Psycho Clown. Ethan Page defeated Rey Fenix, Javon Evans, and Laredo Kid, all four men. Fantastic talent. Rey Fenix is one of the best luchadors out there. Javon Evans, even though I said all the things that I said about the whole stint with Ricochet, Javon Evans is still talented at what he does, and he's one of the best in-ring performers out there on the NXT space. He's fantastic. Laredo Kid, great luchador as well. Ethan Page, don't even get me started. Ethan Page defeated Rey Fenix, Javon Evans, and Laredo Kid to retain the NXT North American Championship. And of course, in the main event, El Hijo del Vikingo, after winning, I believe, a week prior, the AAA Mega Championship, because before that, we all knew who the AAA Mega Champion was, and of course, that was Alberto El Patron. You knew damn well WWE was not going to have a PR nightmare when it comes to Alberto Del Rio being AAA's top champion. So they took the belt off of Patron real quickly by having Vikingo win the title. So El Hijo del Vikingo defeated Chad Gable and retained his AAA Mega Championship. Again, I'm just reading the results because I actually didn't watch the show yet, which sucks because I really wanted to watch the show live. I actually wanted to go live and do a live stream on giving my thoughts on the show, but unfortunately, due to life and a lot of things that I'm basically busy all the time. Unfortunately, all my work interfered with my plans for Worlds Collide, but I'll definitely give the show a watch once I get back home because I'm definitely interested to watch that Vikingo versus Chad Gable match because I heard both men tore the house down. Vikingo is arguably the best luchador in the world. Arguably the best luchador in the world. Like, there's no debate. There's literally no debate whatsoever about El Hijo del Vikingo. I saw this guy live twice. And the first time I saw him live was at a GCW show in Atlantic City. Dude, if you watch Vikingo live, like, watching him on television is great, but watching him live in person, especially at an indie show, dude, it's a whole different ball game. I saw Vikingo doing his, his over the top rope. Like, he jumped over the top rope and did a 450 splash through a table. Like, bro, Vikingo is insane. His match with Kenny Omega a couple years ago on Dynamite was also fantastic as well. But now that WWE has purchased AAA, Vikingo is now going to be a part of essentially the WWE family, even though he's still wrestling for AAA. But it's going to be great, man. I'm so happy that Vikingo finally, getting the spotlight that he deserves. He 100% deserves it, man, because he's definitely one of the best luchadors out there. Moving on to Money in the Bank. Yes, we're going to be talking about Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank originally had 4 matches announced for the show. 4 matches. They originally had 4 matches announced for the show, but then last minute, like a couple hours before the show went on the air, of course, they did the angle with Dominic Mysterio, which led to Dominic Mysterio defending his Intercontinental title against Octagon Jr. But moving on, we're going to be talking about Money in the Bank. Of course, Money in the Bank took place at the Intuit Dome last night in Los Angeles, California. And the celebrities were out there for this show. The celebrities were definitely out there. But one thing I really wanted to point out, and realistically, it had to do with the beginning of the show. But if you watch the beginning of Money in the Bank, the crowd in the beginning is vastly different than the crowd in the end of the show. It's vastly different. This show was reported to be a sellout. But if you watch the beginning of Money in the Bank, dude, the crowd looked extremely empty to the point where WWE had to replace all of those empty seats with all those LEDs, which was fantastic, by the way. I love that visual for the Intuit Dome. The Intuit Dome is arguably the most modern, one of the most, if not the most modern arena out there today. And it's a fairly new arena as well. It's a fairly new arena. But let's quickly do a recap for Money in the Bank 2025. Hold up, let me put this back up. But we had 5 matches on this card. Originally we had 4, but we had 5 matches on this card. We had the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Of course, we had the Men's Money in the Bank ladder match as well. Dominic Mysterio versus El Hijo del Wagner. Or not El Hijo del Wagner. Octagon Jr., my bad. And, of course, we had Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. And, of course, we had the main event, that being John Cena and Logan Paul to take on Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. Originally, if you guys don't know, that match was supposed to be And thank God WWE didn't do this. It was supposed to be somewhat of a celebrity match because there was a lot of rumors about, since Money in the Bank was going to be at the Intuit Dome, there was going to be like a huge, giant celebrity involvement, and like they wanted Travis Scott to start wrestling. So there was rumors of a potential tag team match with John Cena and Travis Scott to take on, I believe, Cody Rhodes and Bad Bunny. I know, but that did not happen. And I even compared that to WCW Bash at the Beach 1998 with Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman versus Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone. The similarities are definitely there. But real quick, let's do a quick recap of Money in the Bank. First, we had the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Pretty good opener to start the show. Of course, we have both the men's and the women's. Naomi ended up winning the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And it was a great move. It was a great call on WWE's end. One of the things that WWE tends to do a lot is really lean towards the predictability aspect when it comes to, their booking. They always go the predictability route, as well as AEW. I think both organizations do that. But when it comes to this women's Money in the Bank ladder match, there were only two logical winners in this match, and it was either Rhea Ripley or Naomi. Now, the fan in me really wanted Stephanie Vaquer to win because arguably Stephanie Vaquer is by far the one of the best, if not the best, women's wrestler, not only in the WWE, but in the world. And you can really compare her to the likes of like Toni Storm and stuff. Like Toni Storm and Stephanie Vaquer are definitely up there. But Stephanie Vaquer is arguably in the running to be easily the MVP of women's wrestling in 2025. But there was only two logical ways that WWE could go about this, and it was either Rhea Ripley or Naomi. A lot of people did not want WWE to go the Rhea Ripley route, so instead they went with Naomi. And Naomi was the smart move. It was 100% the smart move on WWE's end, simply because of the fact that Naomi has arguably been doing the best work of her career throughout 2025, ever since turning heel. She has been doing the best work of her career. Has there been some slight missteps? Yeah, of course there was, but still, she has been doing some of the best work of her career, and Naomi absolutely deserves it. And she's now Miss Money in the Bank. Moving on, we had, of course, Dominic Mysterio versus Octagon Jr. for the Intercontinental Championship. I've always said this, Dominic Mysterio is the man. Dominic Mysterio is the GOAT. But at the same time, he did face off against Octagon Jr., who, by the way, is amazing in and of itself, and he definitely got a chance to showcase his strengths in this match. But my biggest issue with this match was, number one, it was announced the last minute, and number two, the match went on fairly quickly. And even though Octagon Jr. did do a lot of stuff in this match, and you saw a lot of the stuff that he did back at Worlds Collide because it happened on the same night. But still, I mean, if you in front of a WWE crowd, like they barely gave both men time, and the match ended abruptly. Not like really abruptly, but like they gave these guys like less than 10 minutes, I assume. Maybe a little bit more than 10 minutes, but they didn't give these guys a lot of time. And it was obvious that Dominic Mysterio was going to be retaining his Intercontinental Championship, so that was definitely going to be the case in that instance. We had Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Of course, this is a rematch from their match at Backlash, which I thought was very good. And it was actually quite shocking that you had Lyra Valkyria actually retain her Women's Intercontinental title back at Backlash. I actually thought that they were actually going to strap Becky Lynch with the Intercontinental title, but they didn't do that. But this match was just as good, man. This was very good. If there's one thing that I could take away from this whole feud between both Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch is the fact that it's elevating the Women's Intercontinental Championship, because before this feud, WWE really had no focus with the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Like, if you guys don't remember, they unveiled women's tag team titles, and to this day, ever since 2019, the women's tag team titles hasn't meant a damn thing at all. They introduced the Women's United States Championship, and it's still fading away into obscurity because clearly WWE does not have any plans for the Women's the Women's United States Championship, and that's over on the SmackDown side. And over on the Raw side, of course, you had the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and for a while there, WWE did the same thing by just having Lyra Valkyria defend her title, and there was really no sense of meaning when it came to her booking, especially considering she's the first women's Intercontinental champion. You know what I'm saying? It really made no sense for WWE to not really have that direction, especially for a title like the Intercontinental title, because it's always the title that has interesting feuds. You know, it's the title before the world title, and it really needs to be treated that way, especially for the women as well. But in terms of this Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch feud, this feud has been off the chain in my opinion. I've been enjoying their segments on Raw. Not only that, I think, again, the title scene, the Intercontinental title is elevated and it's becoming more important when it comes to feuds like this. So who won this match? Becky Lynch won this match, and rightfully so. Becky Lynch, of course, is going to be holding on to that women's Intercontinental title, and clearly this feud is not going to be over whatsoever. And then, of course, we had the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. The men's Money in the Bank ladder match. I said this one thing on my Money in the Bank live stream last night. I said this one thing. Ladder matches nowadays, especially matches like Money in the Bank, don't really, have a sense of meaning nowadays. Like they don't feel memorable. Like you're not going to get a match that people are going to be talking about years from now. And I mean, you're not going to get that, Hardys versus Dudleys versus Edge and Christian type of ladder match anymore, because number one, it was like one of the first times it was done, a TLC match. But not only that, it left an amazing taste on all of our mouths when we watched that match. And of course, I'm talking about the Triangle ladder match at WrestleMania 2000. I'm talking about the TLC match at SummerSlam 2000 as well as TLC 2 at WrestleMania 17. But we're not going to get those types of matches anymore where everybody's just left breathless. And when we watch normal Money in the Bank ladder matches nowadays, nobody really remembers anything that happens. The exception is probably with the triple threat ladder match that we saw at the SmackDown after WrestleMania, but that's another story for another time. In terms of Money in the Bank, the matches themselves don't really feel memorable in my eyes, at least. But I will say, the Money in the Bank match that we saw last night in terms of the men was fantastic, because there was so many different storylines happening all at once, and I absolutely loved it. Of course, we had Seth Rollins and his goons, that being Braun Breaker and I was about to say JC Mateo, and of course Bronson Reed. Plus, we had Solo Sikoa and his version of the Bloodline. Of course, there's been some sort of dissension between his version of the Bloodline and, of course, Jacob Fatu, from what it looks like, is leaning towards a potential babyface run now that he is, of course, the United States champion, which, let's be realistic with ourselves, by the end of this year, Jacob Fatu is going to be one of the biggest babyfaces out there. And the angle that took place last night at Money in the Bank when it comes to Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa, with Jacob Fatu essentially turning his back on Solo Sikoa, was absolutely fantastic stuff. Some of the spots that took place in the match were insane as well. But there were two guys that WWE, or a lot of fans, I should say, were aiming to potentially win this match. That was either A, Seth Rollins, or B, LA Knight. There was no way Solo Sikoa was going to win this match. There was no way Andrade was going to win this match. There was no way Penta was going to win this match. And there was even no way that El Grande Americano was going to win this match. There was no way, no chance in hell, no pun intended, that those guys were going to win. It was only down to either Seth Rollins or LA Knight. It was only down to those two men. And both of them make sense. Everybody, I could even make the argument that the majority of the people that were watching this match wanted LA Knight to go over. And he was this close to winning Mr. Money in the Bank. But clearly, WWE did not see it that way. For the third straight year in a row, LA Knight has lost Money in the Bank. It's funny. Triple H said this comment. He made this comment at the press conference. Good things come to those who wait. Good things come to those who wait. It's a very interesting comment made by Triple H. Why do I say it's a very interesting comment made by Triple H? I say it's a very interesting comment made by Triple H simply because of the fact that we've been waiting 3 freaking years for WWE to finally get behind LA Knight. We've been waiting for 3, 3, 3. 1, 2, 3. Uno, dos, tres. 3 darn years. 3 darn years for WWE to push LA Knight to the moon. And LA Knight is somebody who is the definition of over in the WWE. If you really think about it, LA Knight, if this were, well, granted, I was going to say if this were the Vince McMahon administration, but clearly under Vince McMahon, they made LA Knight as the head of the Maximum Male Models. You know, what was it? Max Dupree? Remember that name? Who thought that was a good idea? I'm so happy LA Knight is back. But still, we waited 3 years for LA Knight to get pushed to the moon, at least winning Money in the Bank. But WWE did not do that. Once again, they left LA Knight to the side and they went to they took the safe route. And if you really think about it, it's actually kind of the logical route, that being Seth Rollins. I do feel bad for LA Knight. And it was a dumb comment made by Triple H. Good things come to those who wait. It's a very humbling quote, but at the same time, we've been waiting 3 years for you to get behind LA Knight. How much longer are we going to have to wait? How much longer are we going to have to wait? That's my opinion. But Seth Rollins winning Money in the Bank made total sense. I know a lot of people are going to point out statistics. I know a lot of people are going to start not liking Seth Rollins. Everybody, if you really think about it nowadays, a lot of people don't like Seth Rollins, even though I think Seth Rollins is doing some great work. Like, I think Seth Rollins is doing some phenomenal great work. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are just not digging Seth Rollins. I don't know why, but they're just not. They're not. But Seth Rollins winning made total sense because clearly we got a main event this Monday on Raw, that being tomorrow night. And it's going to be consisting of course, Jey Uso defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Gunther. Now, who is going to win that match? Is Jey Uso going to win that match? Is he going to make Gunther tap out again? We don't know. But one interesting note when it comes to that match is that match is actually going to be main eventing Raw. It is going to close Raw. So that is a very interesting note, ladies and gentlemen. That match is going to close Raw tomorrow night. Jey Uso versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. Could we see a potential cash-in? Who knows? We may see a potential cash-in. I have absolutely no idea what is going to happen. But it's interesting. Could Seth Rollins cash in? Maybe. I definitely see it happening, but clearly the narrative right now that WWE is running with is Seth Rollins is eventually going to win the World Heavyweight Championship. Do I think Seth Rollins could cash in? Maybe. But do I think he's going to cash in? No. I think we're probably going to wait till SummerSlam. I think a cash in is probably going to happen at SummerSlam. We're going to have to wait and see. But Seth Rollins, in my opinion, is guaranteed to win the World Heavyweight title. And I don't see Seth Rollins not failing a cash in. That's just me. In terms of LA Knight, I feel bad for LA Knight. I don't know what the hell WWE is not going to be doing with LA Knight. I just don't know what they're going to be doing. I absolutely, like, again, it's been 3 years. Triple H is like, good things come to those who wait. Bro, it's been 3 years. Push LA Knight already. The guy's one of the most over acts on your roster, and he knows how to maintain that momentum. People still chant his name. I don't know. It's WWE for you. And, of course, the main event, Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul. It was a pretty good match. Now, granted, it started off slow. Any match involving John Cena usually starts off slow and then it picks up the pace. But again, John Cena, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's his last year. Give him some slack. The match was pretty good. And some of the spots that we saw in this match were fantastic as well. But again, the main thing that everybody's going to be talking about is R-Truth and his return. And the fact that R-Truth is no longer R-Truth, but he is Ron the Truth Killings. But yeah, who won this match? Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso got the win. And more importantly, Cody Rhodes pinned John Cena in the middle of the mat. I think it clearly shows that Cody Rhodes is right now in the chase for John Cena's world title. Because eventually John Cena is probably going to be champion until his last match in December, or he's probably going to drop it before then. What we also need to take into consideration as well is that John Cena is a heel at the moment. But, of course, throughout the past couple of months, he's been teasing somewhat of a face turn. We saw that at Saturday night's main event. You saw how the crowd cheered when he gave the belt back to the referee. Dude, the crowd went crazy. Eventually, John Cena is going to turn back into a babyface. He's going to turn back into a babyface. He's not going to retire as a heel. It just doesn't make any sense. But he's going to come back as a babyface. Or I think he's going to, return as a babyface, I should say. But John Cena is eventually going to turn back as a babyface before his retirement. That's what I see happening. His heel days at the moment are numbered. But Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso gets the win. Cody Rhodes pins John Cena in the middle of the mat. All right, moving on real quick. Let's talk about a couple of news. Of course, WWE, as you guys know, love counter-programming AEW, even though they are deemed not competition. They are deemed not competition, but WWE actually announced a super show taking place in Corpus Christi, Texas, Saturday, July 19th at the American Bank Center. Now, why am I mentioning this? Why am I mentioning this? This is just an announcement for a normal house show. Why are you talking about this? It's not really that important. Well, if you really think about it, it is kind of important. Because, number one, this takes place, I believe, a week after AEW's All In, which is going to be taking place in the state of Texas as well. So they really want to leech off that crowd. But more importantly, there's been recent reports of WWE actually cutting back on house shows. All of a sudden, they're booking a random Super Show house show a week after All In. It's somewhat of a coincidence, in my opinion. Somewhat of a coincidence. But AEW is not competition, bro. AEW is not competition, bro. Everybody's our competitor. TV is our competition. Movies are our competition. No other sports entertainment entity is competition to us. Baloney. AEW may have their flaws, and trust me, they have a lot of flaws. I'm not going to let them off the hook, okay? They have a lot of flaws. But you cannot deny that WWE has been trying to screw them around from day one. From day one, they've been trying to screw AEW around. And it's only continuing. And if anything, it's actually getting even more aggressive. Have you noticed more shows going head-to-head? Like that NXT show. Like AEW is going to have a residency at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. A week before that whole deal takes place, a week before AEW is going to have their residency at the 2300 Arena, NXT is going to have a show at the 2300 Arena. Think about that. No, but AEW is not competition. Baloney. Moving on. Let's talk about the updated card real quick for All In. Let's do a quick rundown. Of course, we got the AEW World Championship match as Jon Moxley defends his title against the winner of the 2025 Men's Owen Hart Cup tournament, Hangman Adam Page, who's had a tremendous character progression ever since the fall of 2023. We have the AEW Women's World title on the line as Toni Storm will be defending her title against the winner of the Women's 2025 Owen Hart Cup tournament, Mercedes Moné, who, by the way, I believe is still the current TBS champion. And her title reign has been absolutely forgettable. I'm not really that big of a fan of what Mercedes is doing nowadays. And I love Mercedes. I love her to death, but her work in AEW hasn't really been that interesting, in my opinion. And of course, just announced, title for title, the AEW International Championship And the Continental Championship will be on the line. It's so weird how AEW has an intercontinental, or not intercontinental, an international and a continental. Makes no sense. First off, I don't know why the Continental Championship even exists. Yeah, I said it. I do not know why the Continental Championship even exists. And I say that because of the fact that it was basically awarded to whoever won the Continental Classic. And in my opinion, the Continental Classic is arguably one of the best tournaments that AEW would produce all year. One of the best. But my biggest issue with the Continental Classic is the fact that if you win a championship belt. No, if you win this round robin tournament, you get a shot at the world champion at Revolution. That is what you should be doing. But clearly AEW doesn't do that because they need more titles. AEW wants more championship belts. There's even talks of them bringing in women's tag team championships. Yeah, there's talks of AEW bringing in women's tag team championships. If the trios titles didn't work, the women's tag team titles will not work. You need to have championships that have meaning. You need to have championships that have meaning. If you have more championships and you add more championships to your arsenal, you're going to have more titles that just are props. What do I mean by props? You're just going to have titles that don't mean anything. You're just going to have guys holding titles for the sake of holding titles. And I don't like that. I don't like that as a fan. I don't like that as a fan, in my opinion. Like, literally, if you watch AEW, almost everybody has a championship. Almost everybody has a championship. Now, of course, I am exaggerating. Not everybody has a championship, but you get my drift. You get my drift. Quality over quantity. You don't need 25 different championships. I'm not saying that they actually have 25, but you get my drift. You don't need 18 different championships. You got the AEW World, the Tag, the TNT, TBS, Trios, Tags, International, Continental, ROH World. Like, bro, there's so many championships in AEW. It's insane. There's so many championships in AEW alone. And that's not even counting the Ring of Honor belts. That's not even counting the Ring of Honor belts. And of course, Ring of Honor is owned by AEW, but still, it's not even counting the Ring of Honor belts. AEW has way too many championships. But we got the International and Continental Championship match between Kenny Omega, the Best Bout Machine, versus Kazuchika Okada. An ultimate dream match that has taken place in Japan multiple times. Now is going to enter in United States territory, and we're going to be getting this match at All In Texas. It was obvious that we were going to be getting this match. You know for a fact Tony Khan wanted to book this match. But the one thing I will say about Kazuchika Okada is that Okada is not the same Okada that he was in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okada was different in New Japan. Okada, in my eyes, is not, how do I say it? Is not treated as a big star as he was in Japan. I know that may be a hot take, but in my opinion, what I've gotten out of Okada in his AEW run so far is just his comedy. His comedy. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying he's not treated as big of a star as he was in Japan. Hopefully that changes that, because Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada are two of the best to ever do it. And we're going to be getting that at All In. So that is the All In card so far. And we're probably going to be getting more matches later on down the line. Mariah May. Yes, Mariah May is in the news. Mariah May, of course, has showed up on NXT. And it was a shocker to a lot of people simply because of the fact that, of course, Mariah May was taken off of AEW's roster page, I believe, last week. And once you are taken off AEW's roster page, that means that, of course, you are going to be let go by the company or you're letting your contract expire. Well, Mariah May immediately made her decision. She immediately made her decision, and from what it looks like, Mariah May is WWE, and she will be wrestling on the NXT brand. Yes, it's official. Mariah May is wrestling on NXT. And this is the perfect spot for her. I don't care what anybody says. Mariah May is officially with WWE, and NXT is the perfect spot for her. Now, I'm going to read this report from Fightful. They have details behind her signing with WWE. Mariah May has signed a multi-year contract with WWE, as one would expect after she debuted on NXT. WWE has been moving talent around in anticipation of the move, with a number of NXT talent moving up to the main roster. The specifics of the debut were kept very quiet as not to leak, and that has been the case in WWE for a while, ever since TKO took over. At least on WWE's behalf, sources claimed that a very tight circle knew, quote-unquote, officially, that May was on board ahead of time, but the plan for a while has been for her on NXT. Fightful has been told that word was relayed in Guerrilla to the talent just before the segment started. Most in AEW expected her head to WWE for the last number of months, I should say. She's been making moves, preparing for life after AEW over the last couple of months, with mostly everybody thinking that the landing point was WWE, which it was. The talent that Fightful has spoke to said that they expected her on NXT when she signed because of all the recent SmackDown and Raw call-ups, that being, i.e., Stephanie Vaquer, i.e., of course, Julia. Continuing on, Fightful has heard that AEW was interested in retaining her, but have not yet heard what the offers looked like. Those that Fightful has spoke to in AEW didn't seem to think that she departed on bad terms. Mariah May was removed from AEW's roster page on May 31st, with her management said that she was technically still under contract. They've since learned that the deal came up at the start of June with a couple of others, but made the rare move on their behalf of getting ahead of the departure. It was worth noting that Abaddon is still on AEW's roster page despite their deal being up. WWE did not mention her name. Fightful has not heard of anything if they're changing it or not, but there would be no issues of her using the Mariah May name at all, as it is believed to be her shoot name, which is her real name. She's able to use the Mariah May name if both sides chose to, and has for years. This is a different situation, but when Ricky Starks debuted, WWE was insistent that there could be issues with the name, even though he technically used it on WWE television before. Okay, number one, when it comes to the Mariah May name change, in my opinion, I don't think they should change Mariah May's name. It's a similar situation with Ricky Starks. When Ricky Starks made his debut on NXT, the commentators did not mention his name, or Ricky Starks didn't even mention his actual name. But the crowd at the Performance Center knew who he was. They were chanting Ricky, 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 I believe. Hey, look, from one Ricky to another. But everybody in the NXT crowd knew who Ricky Starks was. But eventually they changed his name from Ricky Starks to Ricky Saints. Look, I still call him Ricky Starks. I don't call him Ricky Saints. I call him Ricky Starks because he's Ricky Starks to me. Could you get used to Ricky Saints? Yeah, but to me, I just don't get used to it. I still call him Ricky Starks. In terms of Mariah May, I don't think they should change Mariah May's name. Mariah May, in my opinion, is the perfect name for a wrestler like her. The perfect name. To me, it'd be a dud if they changed her name, but who do I know? It's WWE. They operate differently. But in terms of her showing up on NXT, a lot of people were joking and talking smack about her, being this big star in AEW, having a great, and I mean a fantastic send-off with Toni Storm with that Hollywood ending match. And then she goes to WWE, she signs with WWE, and she goes straight down to NXT. A lot of people view that as a demotion. Meanwhile, you have people like Stephanie Vaquer who had the choice to probably go to NXT, and she did, and it ended up working really well for her. Mariah May going to NXT makes sense. It just makes sense. Why do I say Mariah May showing up on NXT makes sense? It makes sense simply because of the fact that there is a void in the NXT women's division. There is a void. Stephanie Vaquer got called up to Raw. She got called up to the main roster. Julia got called up to SmackDown. Julia got called up to the main roster. Both Stephanie Vaquer and Julia were the top two women in the NXT women's division, and now they're gone. They're on Raw and SmackDown. They're on the main roster. They're on the main shows. NXT needs a void, and NXT has a void that needs to be filled. You think JC Jane is going to fill that void? No disrespect to JC Jane. She's the current NXT Women's Champion, but don't quote me on this. A lot of people think this way, dude. A lot of people think that she is going to be a transitional champion. A lot of people think that she's going to be a transitional champion because there's no chance or there's no way that they bring in Mariah May not to strap Mariah May with the NXT Women's title. I guarantee you within the next at least a month, Mariah May will be the NXT Women's Champion. She is bound to have that title around her waist. Bound to have that title around her waist. It's not even a debate. Mariah May will win the NXT Women's Championship immediately because she's that big of a star and she's one of the biggest signings that WWE could possibly make in this day and age, especially coming off her run in AEW. And she had a great run in AEW. But her dream was always to go wrestle in the WWE, and you cannot blame her for that. But Mariah May is destined for stardom, no pun intended, and she will immediately win the NXT Women's Championship. And who's to say, maybe in a couple months after she drops it, she gets immediately called up as well to the main roster. Who knows? We're going to have to wait and see. But Mariah May has signed with WWE, and she will be wrestling on NXT full-time. But yeah, that concludes the WrestleHavoc podcast. We definitely talked about a lot of things right here on the show, man. An hour and 9 minutes. That actually went by pretty quickly. It went by pretty quickly, right, ladies and gentlemen? Insane. It went by pretty quickly. It was crazy. But man, we definitely talked about a lot. We talked about a lot of things right here on the show. But man, it was a lot of stuff going on, man. A lot of stuff going on. Of course, R-Truth, his return, everything about it was just insane. Just pure insanity on all levels. You know what I'm saying? Just pure insanity. The fact that they just cut R-Truth only to bring him back is just pure. It's pure craziness. It's pure craziness. But you know what? I'm glad that R-Truth is back because he absolutely freaking deserves it. But yeah, that was episode 7 of the WrestleHavoc. We have 9 people. Now, it's not a lot, but bro, we got on the WrestleHavoc side, bro, we have a lot of people talking, man. We got a lot of people talking on the WrestleHavoc side, which is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, man, please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc channel in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. And as always, it is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace.
Get stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah, Kurt Angle, yeah. Why, Triple H, you son of a tell me why. And Tony Khan, this is also on you.
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over here.